What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Prompt Us podcast. We are so excited that you're here to learn with you and to grow with you today. My name is Gabriel, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Chad and Zach. Zach has a prompt for us again today, and both Chad and I don't know what it is.
No idea.
He's just surprising us with this one. We do this every now and then. He's surprising us with a prompt, and we're just going into it. Give it to us, baby.
So we all wanted to lean towards the business one. This is linked, and I think I really want your opinion on it. Anyway, here's the prompt. I'm getting sidetracked already, and we haven't even started.
You're trying to justify the prompt. Just say it.
I don't need to justify this prompt. The prompt is how to manage finances in a relationship.
Ooh.
And another one is all about money, living like in marriage. How do you manage money together? But what I want to do, I want to add a twist, right?
Yep.
Oh,
How
here
do
we
you
go.
do that
Dude, a classic twist.
Oh my god.
If you didn't see that, I just
You
did the
whoa.
whoa. I did the
Yeah.
whoa.
Whoa.
So I want to add a twist. How do you do that when you're a freelancer or your partner's a freelancer? Because I think that's where we can talk about. When I say freelancer, I mean you don't work a typical 9 to 5.
Mhm.
Maybe you're a creative or you work contract, whatever it may be. I want to kind of dive into that because that's a fresh challenge for Chelsea and I right now, where she works her gig and then I'm doing creative freelance, so I got to work at nighttime. How do you manage your finances in that dynamic? How does that sound?
That sounds like a flippin' good prompt, and a part of me wishes I was prepared for it.
Yeah. I think there's a few different directions we can go in.
Okay.
And I think one of those directions
Do you want to like lay out these directions, pick a few verticals, and then we can kind of touch on each area?
I'm here for that.
Let's go. Let's add some
Holy
structure to
dooly,
it.
That sounded complex.
So
Dude, no. Let's add some structure to it.
yeah.
Because
and-
everyone knows you need a little bit of good structure if you're trying to do a good financial hustle. You
Mhm.
know what I mean?
Yeah. So I think
a little system.
A
I
little
think
bit of
one of the
systems,
first things would be that we all have an inappropriate relationship with money. Like we all do. We all come from different backgrounds. We all have a very unique understanding of money. And some of them are really good. Some of them aren't really good.
Mhm.
They're all just very unique. And so one of the first things you want to know is just understand that. You're like, you're coming from a unique background because finance is not taught in school unless you're in one of those really, nice private schools or you're studying strictly business in college.
So let's go rich dad, poor dad here.
Yeah.
What is a healthy view of money? How should we view money?
Yeah, heck yeah, as
Do
a
you
tool.
want, yeah. Do you want me to explain?
Yeah,
a
go
little bit?
ahead.
Okay,
Yeah.
So as you said,
Dude, you dropped it.
a tool. Basically, it is. A lot of people view money as its own type of thing compared to everything else.
Yeah.
Where money, it's a thing like everything else. It's a form of trade.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like everything has a set of value, and we've just decided, like as a society and culture, and with the economy and all those things, that a $10 bill has the value of a $10 bill. You know what I mean? And then that translates to what can you buy for $10?
Well,
I don't know, like
anything now.
a small Lego set or something.
I love that. That's where Gabe goes.
I'm just saying that in a similar way, it is a thing that, okay, guys, come on.
Dude, that's awesome. I'm not mad. I just think that's hilarious.
Oh, on the other side of that door right over there is just a closet of Legos.
Yeah, that are more
My
than
whole
$10.
collection they're more than $10. Sorry, guys. Hate to brag, but like I have a lot of Legos, so watch out. I'm kind of cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, where the heck was I? Yeah. So money is basically, it's a tool to be able to accomplish things. And what are the things that you're accomplishing? Are they healthy things or unhealthy things? And that's, I mean,
Did you just drop the mic right there?
well, not that I dropped the mic. I mean, I feel like we can dive into it a little more.
Yeah.
Specifically, do you
wanna,
want to bring some more clarity to it?
Yeah.
I just want to throw this out there. Should we? I know that we're already 5 minutes in, but should we change the prompt to how to build a healthy relationship with money?
It's up to you.
I don't know. Maybe that's one of the verticals. Okay. I think we need
I just feel like my prompt was so convoluted. That's why I'm like,
No. I think the start of the prompt that you gave is you you need to be on the same page of how you view finances.
Yep. Which is
what
why
are they for? What is the
yeah.
purpose of them?
Mhm.
Okay, sure.
You know what I
cool.
mean? So
That's
it's
cool. As long as you feel good with that.
yeah. So it's developing that,
Mhm.
and then you move on to the next step of how to utilize that by yourself within relationships and stuff.
Mhm. I feel like I'm having a good effect on Gabe.
Why?
Because like he kind of poked fun a little bit about me being so into the theory of it, but like that's where I always start. Right?
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
like
yeah.
whenever there's a question, like okay, let's think big picture here.
Mm-hmm.
What is our relationship with money?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's just like I love that. And now Gabe's just like,
Yeah, that's awesome.
What's
Great.
the theory behind
Yeah.
it first? Oh my gosh.
I loved what you were saying though, Gabe, about like just money is a tool. And I had a very inappropriate relationship and view on money my entire life to where money was going to be my salvation. Money was going to be my ticket out of hardship. Money was going to be the way that I no longer have to have stress in my life. And that's really inappropriate. And I used the word inappropriate. I guess I could say wrong. But for me, I needed to realize that money comes and goes, and I'm not going to allow my happiness or my joy be dictated by something that's so what's the word?
Fickle.
Yeah, fickle. You know, it comes and it goes. And you know, it's almost like I love this quote that if you own something and you can't let it go, you don't own it, it owns you. And so for me, I was holding money so tightly that this is going to solve all my problems, right? And it doesn't. It honestly sometimes creates more problems, you know? And so for me, I just would love to make sure that we're all like, I mean, did you grow up with a healthy view on money, Gabe, or Zach? How about you?
I did. I mean, Zach, do you want to take it first? Then I can give my experience.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've talked about in a few podcasts before, just my view on money, and everything you're saying is like something I've learned in the last like few years. And I think it's awesome that we are publicly saying this stuff, because if even one person is impacted by what we're saying,
Amen.
that's like a game changer, right? Because for so long, I like believed the lie that, like you're saying, Gabe, and like you mentioned, Chad, as well, like money was valued so much more, right? Because think of what it could do for you. Think about the things it can do. And it wasn't until, I think it's Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? When he's like, money is nothing. Money's just like a piece of paper until your hand holds it, right? Until the hand receives it, it's like money's worth nothing. It's actually what value you add onto it. And so, yeah, for me, I definitely overvalued it. Like, well, hey, that's going to help me do this. It's going to help me. If I make enough money from music, then I can do music forever. But it's like, no, there's so many things in between that actually need to occur before that happens. But yeah, definitely not a good relationship with money for a while.
Yeah, for me, my experience, and I think I've explained this before. My view on money wasn't specifically that of like, oh, this is a tool to use in the marketplace to trade and stuff. Like, it wasn't that level of like how this is how the economy works and stuff. But it was, I think I had a relatively unselfish view towards it, because my parents had a rule in our family that all the money that we got for like Christmas or birthdays, like gifts, basically, that's when, or for chores and stuff. It's like the three ways of getting money as a kid is like chores, birthdays, and Christmas.
Yeah.
Whenever we would make that money, we would first tithe 10%, first fruits to God. Then we'd put what we had left was 50% we would save, and 50% we got to use to spend on whatever we wanted. Yeah, so that was, ever since I can remember, that was the rule in our house. So I grew up always tithing 10% and saving. And then, dude, I remember I was like a teenager, and all of a sudden, like we'd have like money left over, and we'd give it to my dad or whatever, and they would put it in the bank account. And like I remember having, I forget how much it was, but it was either like over $1,000 or maybe like $2,000 that I all of a sudden had as like a teenager that I had saved up because of like, you know, an extra $40 here, $20 there for a different birthday or whatever that I was able to save, you know, and that from that age, when you kind of see that at a young age, you kind of realize the importance of saving and like playing ahead. Or planning for the future, you know, because you kind of realize like, oh, wait, because I did this for so long, this was the result.
Yeah.
And so often we're just, you know, when we talked about in the habits one, like building habits, you're building habits on how to deal with money when you're a kid when you get paid for chores, when you get paid for all this stuff. And if you don't have, and that's like, I give so much credit to my parents for really like implementing that rule, because I got to build these healthy habits with my finances early on, that I wasn't scared to continue those same habits as an adult when I got my first paycheck and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I guess to bring that back full circle, I think it's just great for our audience to hear that we all have different experiences with money. We all have a different relationship with money. And so as we bring our relationships with money into a relationship where we're going to talk about money, we have to be very delicate and careful, because money is such a sensitive thing. You know, people get so weird when they talk about like net worth or how much money is your bank account and all this stuff, because it is kind of private. And I think it's because here in the West, we attach so much self-worth into your self-worth.
Yeah.
And so I think that
I explained that before too, that you have to really separate your identity from finances. Your value as a human being is completely separate to your value in the marketplace.
Absolutely.
There is a value that people have, and I'll reiterate this, there is a value people have in the marketplace, but that doesn't change your value as you being you.
Yeah.
Like maybe you have this skill set and stuff, and or you went to college and got a master's in whatever it is, and you're getting paid a certain salary because that's just the value that you have based on what you bring to the marketplace. But that's different than your value as a human being and who you are.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you, because it's like that quote that I shared about Jeff Bezos whenever he was like the richest man in the world. And basically they were like, how do you feel about this? Give us all your wisdom. And he's just like, I don't feel this percentage smarter, because if I took a 20% hit on myself, on my net worth, I wouldn't feel 20% dumber, And so even the wealthiest people are not attaching their worth to their net worth, And so I think that it's really important to know all those things, because you want to approach the conversation as you talk about money in your relationship, because it's going to be very private, and people were taught great tips or people were taught really bad tips. And so I know that when Tori and I started talking about money, it was hard for me to admit that I had a spending problem, because for me, because I didn't grow up around a lot. And let me tell you, my parents did the best they could. And also my parents did exponentially better than their parents did. And so, there's that social generational growth. And so, but for me, I learned how to operate with a very little, because I grew up around it. Right. And so when I started modeling and making a little guacamole,
some of that cash,
dude,
some of that sweet cash,
the nectar.
Oh my gosh.
I remember when I first started modeling and I earned a good bit of money, I took a 2-month vacation.
Did you really?
How stupid was that? You have any idea how stupid that was?
2-month vacation.
2-month vacation. I went to New York for a while and I went to LA for a while.
Dude, that's so much longer than this 2-minute ad. It's probably not even 2 minutes, honestly.
I'm equally impressed as I am a little let down.
Guys, I'm sorry I had to do it. Anyway, Chad, you were saying?
Yeah, and so...
You took a 2-month vacation.
And so I had to share my bad spending habits. And, because then you have to kind of... because money is so personal, you want to make sure that the person that you're coming into a relationship with has a good respect for it. And has similar financial goals as you do. Because, and not to make everything about money, but this episode is all about it, right? She wanted to make sure that I wanted to be generous with the money I earned. She wanted to know that I wanted to save and prepare for our future children. She wanted to see these different things, and all she saw was, a quote unquote single guy, because, I wasn't married, taking trips, buying nice backpacks.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, don't.
That's so funny.
Yeah, I had to give Gabe and I a little call out for that, because we bought some nice backpacks.
Yeah, because we were like talking about it, and we were like, "Oh, this is so sick," and we were like geeking out about these cool backpacks, and we ended up buying them.
Yeah,
both of our wives were like,
"Yeah,
why?"
Yeah, it was stupid. But anyways, and so gosh. I had to kind of prepare myself to realize that, like, as you come into a relationship, like, your money is not your own. What's mine is yours. Well,
it's the same as your talents, like we've talked about. It is given to you to steward from God.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is a resource that God has given you, like your talents, like your personality, like your location, like all these things where you are in life, and what you have is a resource that you can utilize or kind of like throw to waste.
Yeah. And so before Tori and I got engaged, is a funny quick story. I kind of had this rule where I wanted to be out of debt by the time we got married, right? And so you don't need to do that. If you're listening, you don't need to do that. But that was just something personally, because I think I was so bad with money for so long. And then a very close friend of mine named Bruce reached out, and he helped just change my entire financial future. Thank God for Bruce, right? But I was at one point like $60,000 to $70,000 in debt. A portion of that, around 18, was in credit card debt, and the rest was in student loans.
That's wild, dude.
And I carried balances, and even whenever I signed up for student loans, and we can talk about that in another episode, I didn't even know what I was signing up for, but it was on me. My name's on the paper, so I got to pay it back.
Yeah.
And so for me, I was just like, you know what? I almost want to prove it to myself that I can be better with money and make good decisions. And so I was like, all right, I want to get out of debt by the time we would get married. And I asked my wife like what her timeline is to get married. And my now wife, I asked my girlfriend, I was like, what's your timeline? She's like, I'm not trying to wait around. So I was like, I better double down on paying down this debt. And so I reached out to my friend Bruce, who's now my accountant, and got a lot of advice. And I remember I had this job in Wisconsin. I don't remember the small city it was in. I had a modeling job in Wisconsin. And I asked him, I was getting ready to buy her engagement ring, but it was it's a good chunk of money. It's like, I've never spent that much money before. I've only just allowed myself to rack up debt more than, which is hilarious. Right. And so I messaged him. I said, hey, here's my car loan and here's my student loans. These are the only loans I have. How do I look? Can I afford to buy a ring for her? And he's like, well, I got good news, bad news. Good news is your car is in great shape. You're gonna end up having equity in your car, but your student loans, you're gonna owe an additional like $15,000 in interest over your loan repayment period. I'm like, what? I was like, what does that mean? He's like, that means that as you pay it back, you're gonna pay an additional $15K on your loan
over the life of the loan with the interest.
An additional 15. I was like, what do I do about it? He's like, can you pay it off? And I was like, maybe. I was like, maybe, I don't want to. Anyways, so he's like, if you can, do it. And so we did that. And then I told my wife, or I told Tori that, my girlfriend at the time, but I had already like bought the ring and she didn't know. I was going to pay off the loans and buy the ring.
Gotcha.
And so she didn't know I did that. And I told her like, oh, I can't, I can't, there was things I wanted to do with this money, wink, wink, but I had to pay off my student loans and all that. And she was like, awesome.
Wait, so you were able to pay it off in one, from money you had saved, you were able to pay it off in one?
Yep.
Dude, that's huge.
Wow,
yeah.
To be able to do that, that's awesome.
Yeah. Well,
see, like on one side of the coin, you had the dip. On the other side, you were still being smart and saving and not just blowing it all.
Yeah.
That like when I guess rubber hit the road and you were like, okay, what am I going to do in this situation? You like made the call to pay it off really quick.
But it was only with the advice and counsel of others. It was only with that. I was huge into Dave Ramsey. I was listening to every podcast every day. I was doing the debt-free screams with everybody. I was listening to all the different podcasts. I was reading the books.
And you weren't even paying off your student loan debt.
Well, I was making good payments, but
you were just doing the payment thing.
I was just doing the payment thing.
You weren't like trying to actively get ahead of the payment schedule.
Yeah, but I was making double payments, and I thought I was doing a good job. But it turns out like 80% of that payment was going to interest.
80%.
It was they were like subsidized loans, or there's a type of loan that once you take the loan in college, it starts accruing interest right then.
No.
And bro, I didn't understand that stuff. Anyways, for me, it was really important for me to not only tell myself that I can build a good financial future for myself, but I can also, I want the person I'm going to be with to see that too. I want her to see I can be responsible, because guess what?
Speaking of being responsible, I'm like legit. Once you said that, I just feel like we need to encourage people listening right now. If you have student loan debt, know the student loan debt that you got. Like do that research that Chad.
I didn't do
unfortunately find out after the fact that like, yeah, he got a, whatever it was, like $40,000 loan or whatever the number was, but he had an additional 15K that he had already racked up and would continue to have to pay over the years. Like that's huge to know like what your loan is and what the interest is doing to that and how much you're going to have to pay and stuff like that. Like do that homework. I'd really encourage you to do that.
Yeah. And do that before you start investing your money. Because for me, I had some money in the market. And here I am, have $2,000 in a Robinhood account, right? Making 7% growth, and I'm losing 16% off of $44,000 every single month. Like, where's the math there?
Yeah.
I wasn't taught that, you know. Anyways, where was I? I was talking about being responsible, right?
Yeah. And you're talking about like when you told Tori and everything. Like that.
And for me, I really wanted to show that I could be responsible. Gosh, where was I going with that? I remember what I was going to say, boys.
You remember it?
I got it.
Before I completely...
Dude, don't worry. I love the interruptions because we're all building each other up. You know, I love it. And so, but anybody got to guess what the second leading cause of divorce is?
Finances.
Money problems. Mo money, mo problems.
What's the first?
Cheating.
Oh.
Dude, you know, like home renovations is like number 3 or 4 or something like that.
No way.
Yeah, like home renovations.
God.
The stress it causes your relationship is insane.
No
and so
way.
I'm actually now that we're getting into this topic, 26 minutes in, I'm just like, oh baby, let's buckle up and let's talk about this because the issues that money problems cause relationships is devastating.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, it's the same as you've been explaining this and then talking about specifically about your relationship and stuff like that. Like Jess and I went through that as well, of understanding what our views are of money and then what we want to do with money once we receive it and like what are just the whole thing. It goes back to like having that purpose in common in your relationship because you need to both be on the same page, going in the same direction, fighting on the same, like you're on the same team.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you want to be just like both understanding of where your money's going, what you're doing with it, how you're using it, and just completely like aligned.
Because it may not scare you right now, like whenever you're just deciding who's going to pay for dinner or where you're going to eat. But when you're making decisions on where you want to live or where you want to send your children to school or what kind of car that you want to drive, or how you want to invest your money,
or how much debt you actually have at the moment when you're dating, like that's something you need to know before you get into a relationship. You know what I mean? Like that's so great that you were talking about that with Tori before you even like you were having those financial conversations about the debt you had and how you're trying to pay it off and the strategy that you were using. That was showing her intentionality in you investing in your future together. You know what I mean? And building those habits early. Like that's something you have to be honest about because imagine getting into a relationship and you not being honest about the debt that you have. And then all of a sudden you're like $60,000 in loan debt is now their burden also. And you weren't even honest about it. You just threw that baggage on the table right after you're married. And now that's just like part of the deal. And you weren't even honest. Like that's huge. You got to be open and honest about that stuff. Like lay it out on all on the table.
Yeah. And I mean, I come from the background where like I'm really big on having a joint bank account. Like that's it.
Oh,
like I don't play the game of separate bank accounts. I don't play that game. But I've had to even take it a quick step further where because of things that my wife went through regarding her family and some money things, I now have to be so protective to make sure that she sees what's going on financially and she makes sure that she feels secure because of different baggage with her own life. And so it's such a touchy subject, and I think it's good for us to have these conversations about like how we can best like prepare ourselves to integrate finance into our relationships, because it's something that people don't like to talk about unless they're like, oh, let's just make a lot of money. But when it comes to like the real, no offense, like the real people who actually have real debt, and it's like that's why I'm so glad we're having this conversation, is because now we have a chance to be honest about where we're at and just be like, hey, like, yeah, it may suck where you are right now, but there's so many opportunities to do better. And like, Zach, how did that play out for you and Chelsea? Like, did you guys have those conversations?
Dude, it's so similar, hey, to your stuff, Chad. Like I actually owed Chelsea money when we were like friends.
No way.
And it was a big, it was
Dude, this
like,
is the
it was
greatest
spicy,
thing ever.
dude.
Can we talk about how like we're just like having these conversations and Zach like drops these bombs about
love it.
like your and Chelsea's relationship, and I was like, wait, I didn't even know that. Like,
Dude,
like you
I
just
just,
being
like,
on
love
her
it.
parents' couch for like on her couch for months when you guys were just friends, and you like living on her couch for a year.
Dude, I mean, I love listening to what you guys talk about because I'm like, true. Like it just highlights the importance of like how crazy it is. Because I owed Chelsea like a few grand.
Wow.
From
a
trip
good
that we
chunk
took
of money.
to America.
A few grand.
Yeah.
Wait, when
Wow.
that trip
Yeah,
that you
and-
came and visited us?
Yeah, like because I was like thought I was gonna have money for that trip, and we got there and I didn't get paid, right? And I just never got paid. It was like that's a whole nother story for like business and stuff. But
Oh my
yeah, I just
gosh.
didn't get paid. And so Chelsea, like being the absolute legend that she is, like was like, well, we're here. Like obviously
Being
we
a
should still
homie.
do stuff. We can't, dude. Legit, Chelsea coming through, and yeah, dude. And so owing Chelsea money, like when I was like, when we started dating, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna pursue Chelsea. Like I think I want to marry this girl. I know I want to marry this girl. I was like, oh dang, I can't owe like this girl money. I just felt so like it was weighed so heavy on me. And so seriously, I remember Chad and I talking about this because I was like, I'm gonna propose to Chelsea. This is what I want to do, and this is the ring I want. And I was super sad that I couldn't afford this ring. And Chad was like, you need to know that like Chelsea's gonna love you and will say yes and want to do this with you, regardless of how much the ring was. And what I did was I ended up paying Chelsea off and all this other debt off with the money that I would have spent on a ring.
Oh,
Like,
that's so dope.
isn't that crazy?
That's
Let's
so
go,
much
dude.
better, dude. That's so much better.
Bro, that's
Right?
investing. That's just showing that like that shows her that you're investing in your future together to set you guys up for
Exactly.
long-term success rather than here. And obviously like a ring is special, but like
But dude,
the
not
bigger
when
ring
you
or the
owe
better
person you're
ring.
giving a ring to money.
yeah, dude. Like,
what does that mean? Like if for her, like the confliction within her, if I was like, here's this super bougie ring I bought you because I love you, and she's like, yeah, but you owe me $3,000. Like, why did you not just?
Yeah.
And I think
dude, the
that
ring
was a big-
symbolizes the ring symbolizes the commitment. It shouldn't symbolize
Exactly.
how much cash you were able to blow on the
Yeah.
ring.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, yeah, man. So that was a big learning curve. But what it did, and I'm so glad we pushed through, and I'm so glad I pushed through on it and made sure that, like, hey, I'm out of debt. Like Chelsea and I went in together, not on zero. We both had savings, but we went in together as zero, other than our student loans, which work really differently here in Australia. But they're still loans, but they're a little bit. It's a whole different thing, I guess. But we went in together in our marriage, starting at zero together, and we both had this goal of we wanted to put $5,000 in for like a month before we got married, kind of thing, and or even further, like so that we knew that we were sorted. And I think it was the transparency that we had with each other to even be like, hey, do you have $5,000 to put in together? Like if you don't, that's okay, but that's the goal we want to set together. And dude, I worked my butt off that month because
Dude,
not only
huge.
did I pay off debt within those few months, I saved $5,000 to go in together with marriage. And
Dude, I remember
yeah,
that
just
period of time
crazy.
because you were breaking that down in weeks.
Mhm.
And I remember you were like, I need to be making this much a week. And like you were getting extra jobs, extra like graphic design gigs, like whatever it was. I remember you just like hustling your tail off to make sure that you were meeting that goal. I don't know. That's so cool to hear and like remember all that. That's so sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. But look, and to be fully transparent, that doesn't mean I bought the ring cash. And that was a big thing that I had to like really disclose to Chelsea and be like, hey, I'm like, it wasn't an expensive ring. It wasn't something that I went crazy in, but I was like, wow, I just spent all this time trying to get out of debt to go into debt. And it's like, could I have just worked a little harder? Could I have just done this? And it's hard to not live in guilt of that still, even though it fully does not matter anymore. All that debt is gone. It's not like it's still weighing on me, but it's for me, I'm like, hey, I really cut it, like cut it close. I cut the line close where it's like, I still almost went into marriage with a burden that Chelsea didn't need to carry, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I love your vulnerability there because money issues don't really go away. It's like there's times where we're making more money and that's nice, but we all still have our different thoughts and feelings on money. And it's not like you just flip the script one day and all of a sudden you're like a finance guru, but being able to communicate effectively with Chelsea is so important for you. Cause you can be raw and real about your financial situation and decisions. And she can, you know, say, hey, like we can do this together. Because I remember like with Tori, whenever she was deciding to move out to LA to be with me, she had this kind of rule of like she didn't want to move until she had a ring on the finger. Cause obviously moving across the entire country, you know, without having a ring is like leaving work and friends and community and everything to just go test something
For
out.
your boyfriend.
Yeah. But for me, it's like, we'd never lived in the same city together. And I was like, I really wanted to know what it was like to be with each other in the same city. But with her, she had like lost her job and then she started her own job or she started her own company. And then it came down to like us talking about different financial systems together. And I feel like it made us a lot closer, even to the point where I remember the day that she paid off her debt. We were sitting there together. We were visiting Santa Barbara, and it was too windy for us to be at the beach. So we just went and found this like little restaurant we're having lunch in, and we were just talking about money because it's an important thing to normalize talking about with people that you can trust, by the way.
And I think that's so key, the way you're talking about that too, because you were separating, like your approach to finances with your girlfriend was different to your approach in marriage. Like you weren't combining finances when you were boyfriend and girlfriend. Like you're not married yet. That responsibility isn't a together thing.
Nope.
You know what I mean? But you were encouraging her and both honest and open in the conversation and planning for the marriage version of that to eventually be a thing.
Absolutely.
You know,
and I think that's like the first 2 points I had made earlier about recognizing that we each have a unique relationship with money is because if I stormed up into that restaurant with her and I have my opinions on getting out of debt because I'm all jacked up on this Dave Ramsey stuff, that's going to send a aggressive message to her whenever she has her own story. You know, and so we sat there and we were talking about different stuff and how we feel about generosity, you know, and because my mom, I love my mom. She's been really big on that our whole entire life. Is she had this thing on like this little piece of art for me that says, be a go-getter and a go-giver. And
that's really cool.
Whenever I said I have a spending problem, sometimes those things were on people's GoFundMes. You know, like it wasn't just for stuff for myself. And like, but I didn't know how to manage it for myself, but I was just very free with it because I knew how to do well with the little. And so like I could operate off of, you know, $800 a month and then just give the rest to whatever.
Yeah.
But with Tori, I remember her saying, do you think I should pay off my debt? And I'm like, can you? And she was like, yeah. I'm like, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it was a fun experience because I didn't put any unnecessary pressure on her, and she didn't feel that pressure from me. She didn't feel less than that she had debt. I mean, and I low-key had like 10 times more than her just like a few months prior. You know what I mean? But like, I love that we normalized it and it felt comfortable to talk about. And it should be something that we talk about in a healthy setting, where we're not projecting our own feelings and thoughts onto somebody, but we can encourage them to make good financial decisions.
You know what else I think is really good to talk about and kind of have an open dialogue about in like a healthy way is these next few ads that are going to play. So to segue from what we've been talking about this whole entire podcast, I think it'd be a good way to end is just to add a few practical tips, and you guys can add whatever else. I'm just going to give one thing that Jess and I do that really helps us stay on the same page, like with our finances, and make sure that we are attacking it together, you know? And you guys can cut me off and add stuff wherever you feel fit. But
did you say add?
Oh
Can you imagine? That would have been such a good one. Are you kidding me?
Dude, that's so funny.
Sorry, but that would have been a really good one.
I know, that would have been a good one. So one of the things that Jess and I do is we have a spreadsheet that is basically, it's an expense tracker that kind of acts as our budget as well. It's like a budget / expense tracker. So it's an Excel spreadsheet, and it's all the different rows on the top. We have dining and coffee. The next one is groceries and home essentials. Then we have, parking, gas, and transportation. We have, we have a miscellaneous column for the kind of things that are random sometimes. I don't know what's giving an entertainment one, just different categories. And we basically, and the numbers have adjusted based off of like from the first time when we made the spreadsheet to what we actually spend and what we want to keep things under and stuff like that. And each column has, at the top of the column, there are two number amounts. The first one is what is budgeted, and then the one underneath is the total amount that is spent for that month. And then as we go, and we do it, we input it manually. And there's a reason for that. I'll get to that. But we input it manually. So as we go, and we have it on a spreadsheet that both Jess and I are connected to on like Google Drive or whatever. And as we spend something, whenever I swipe a card or whatever, I either take the receipt or I remember, and it's become a habit, building habits, shout out. Yeah. So it's become a habit. And every time I see, I spent $6.30 at Starbucks, I like remember like, okay, $6.30. And like right after I, Apple Pay or swipe my card or whatever it is, I pull out my phone and enter that $6.30 into the expense tracker. And I can see as the numbers are adding up and stuff like that. And it really makes you, it adds that element of kind of like the painful element of spending money that makes you habitually spend less because you actually realize how much you are spending. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we added our assistant, Victoria. She is now part of that expense tracker because whenever she goes out and buys something for us, or if she goes and gets groceries or whatever it is that we have her do, if she spends money on something, we have her input that into our expense tracker as well. And at first, when we were kind of like going through that and trying to figure out, oh, should we add her? We want her money, the money that she is spending, to also be tracked on that thing. She had mentioned like, oh, there's apps that can do this, and it kind of will do it automatically. So then at the end of the month, you can look at it and the categories are all there. And I mean, the main reason why I didn't want to there's like the two reasons why I didn't want to go through like those apps is because a lot of times they like input it wrong and stuff like that. And then if you have multiple bank accounts, that kind of got a little weird too. So just doing it manually worked for us, but also the actual habit of inputting the money and inputting the dollar amounts manually and seeing how much it's adding up per month, and constantly being aware of like how close you're getting to reaching your budget. And you're like, oh my gosh, I have a week left in the month and I only have $10 left on,
expenses,
coffee and dining for this month. Like, I guess I'm making coffee at home for the rest of the week. You know what I mean? Like that sort of thing, that you're setting these boundaries for your family to keep yourselves from developing bad habits. And Victoria, it was probably like 3 days ago, she was inputting some of the numbers into the spreadsheet, and she's like, this is crazy, but there really is something to manually inputting all this stuff into a spreadsheet rather than it just happening.
Yeah.
Like an automatic app or something like that. So that is one like really practical thing that you're sitting down, and it's not something that like, no, we have the spreadsheet and the numbers stay the same every month. I mean, eventually it can get to that point. Jess and I rarely like refine it now, but it was a process of like, okay, we actually kind of need to spend this much here, depending on that. And like, oh, we spend way less here than we actually thought we do. We can adjust that number to like keep it all in. But yeah, that's kind of our approach to like, to on the daily be on the same page with each other with finances.
I love that because I actually manually pay everything.
Like your credit cards,
rent, credit cards, all utilities.
Oh, you manually
I
pay
have to
all that
log
stuff.
in every single month. I do the same thing.
Dude,
because I have to rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah.
And it's annoying because you can set up Autopay, but that's when you can start coasting.
Yeah, see, that's a problem we ran into because we do have a lot of things on Autopay, like the mortgage and all of those types of things. But yeah, what we've been doing is really because our situation's a little weird when anyone who kind of is self-employed, if you like kind of have your business and then your personal finances, especially in our line of work, it meshes so much. And you're like, oh, is this a business expense? Is this a personal expense? Like, what is that? Like, how do I separate this stuff? So, and we have quite a few like different bank accounts based on like, where money is flowing and like different businesses that we have and stuff like that. So, we really try, and recently there's been so many of those like auto payments and random things, and now like the new house expenses and stuff like that, that we've been developing a bunch of different kind of like expense reports that break everything down and it has like every payment. We know where it's attached to, whether the auto payment is coming out of a bank account, whether it's coming out of a credit card, what credit card it's coming out of, what, like just exactly where it's attached to and where the auto payment is. And then at the bottom of those expense reports, the total numbers that are being spent on each card. Like, this is how much we're racking up per month on auto payments, on credit cards. This is how much is coming straight out of the bank account and which bank account it is. And this is, you know, and it kind of like breaks that down. And it takes a lot of homework. And we were lucky enough to have an assistant who's really capable at kind of helping us. So she really helped us, you know, kind of put all that together. But it's like, it's being intentional. And then we sit down, me, Jess, and our assistant, sitting down, and we put it on the TV and kind of review things. And Jess and I are sitting there like, man, we need to, like, literally, it was probably like a month and a half ago. We're sitting there looking at the TV like, man, we need to change a few things because we weren't aware that this is like the house was the auto payments on certain things, maintenance on the house and bills and stuff was going to be like this. So, you know, we're going to change these few things here. Let's try and see if there's a different, I don't know, a pool guy or something like, oh, this pool guy's cheaper, but he's actually better. You know, just like really being intentional with how we're going to approach our finances and stuff, and it being a monthly thing.
Yeah, I really love what you're saying, because it's kind of bringing it back full circle about what you said earlier regarding money being a tool. And just like with any specific tool that you have, you use it for a specific reason, because tools are meant to be used. And that's what you guys are doing with your money, is you're using it appropriately.
Yeah, and you want to use it, and it's not purely... And I'm saying all this, you know, and kind of like explaining this whole thing. Jess and I, like, the goal is to use it for the glory of God, right? But there is, what's that verse where enjoy the fruits of your labor? You know what I mean? Like, you can enjoy it and using for things, but you do want to be generous with it. And you do want, you know, you want all of these things, but being very intentional. Talks about it in the Bible too, with the parable of the talents and stuff like that. Like, you need to be investing properly and be very intentional with your finances, because if you have a heart for generosity, there's like the unhealthy giver where they could destroy their family by being so generous to other people that they're starving and their family's starving, where you can potentially be so much more generous if you properly set up your finances in a way that it's going to grow and grow in a healthy way, that you can continue to be giving generously. And as you're, you know, building that wealth and being responsible with those finances, you're able to bless other people through it. And it's kind of like that compound interest thing. Like the more it grows, the more it grows. You know what I mean? I feel like I've been rambling on for a while here, but
you've been crushing it, dude.
Thanks, bro.
You've been getting a lot of good practical stuff. Sorry, my 2 responses were to try to close it out. Zach, could you tell?
Yeah.
Oh, were they? And then I just come back and I'm like, yeah, but here's more.
That's like my 3rd time this episode trying to close it. I'm not hating.
This one's pretty long. This one's pretty long. Anyway, guys, I know I rambled on for a bit, but I don't know. I just felt like I wanted to. This podcast went pretty long, but I wanted to just at the end of that whole conversation, we added some meaning to it, and I definitely wanted to add a few practical elements, and maybe in a future podcast, we can even get more into that and kind of like the systems of really building out like financial stability within a relationship. But I mean, ultimately being on the same page with your partner and knowing your roles, you know, where it is in just a relationship before you're married, and then once you're married, how that combines, and when you're on the same team, like moving forward, and some of those practical elements to really implement that and build those habits. So we just encourage you guys to really, I guess, take that to heart and be really intentional and purposeful with the way you approach your finances with your partner. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode of Prompt Us. And remember, you can follow us at Prompt Us Podcast on Instagram. That's our handle, at Prompt Us Podcast. And that is where you can submit prompts that will be topics that we discuss in future episodes. Appreciate you guys tons, and we'll talk again in the next one.